Hi all. This video is an excerpt of the upcoming book Brightstar by Jared N Michaud, set to release April 16th, 2024. I'm releasing the video to give you a taste of what the book's like. I'm going to be reading 3 different excerpts, 2 from the introduction and 1 from chapter 1. We'll start with the letter from Paul Cassizia to the coming Brightstar, written on the eve of the disappearance. I do not know who you are, but I know that you will come. My compatriot Seaver Ratting tells me that he has seen a vision of a great light hurtling into our universe, bent upon defeating the enemies that beset us from every side. Seaver may be odd, but his visions have never failed to come to pass. Thus I write to you, Brightstar, to give you whatever blessing I may, and perhaps to arm you against the evils you will face. I have all but lost hope. The Nocifer, the Ill-Vain, and especially the Opterans plague me. Even those who are still truly human are fractious. All the mortal powers are like flies, waiting to bite me the instant I turn my attention to something more important. It has been 1,000 years since we fled, and we brought so little with us. Our history has been lost. I have only the dreams to remember Earth, and they are nothing but terror. I thought we had left Lastus Rowland and his ilk behind when we escaped Earth that was. I was wrong. Or perhaps I misunderstood the threat from the very beginning. I fear I have failed this universe over which the Lightmaker set me as guardian. They have won. All I can do now is to delay them. But I didn't set out to complain to you of my own problems. I feel the burden of the looming darkness. I had to warn you of the evils I have failed to overcome. I do not foresee this universe becoming safer when I am gone. I hope I may forestall its destruction, but I cannot imagine prevailing against the many-headed void spawn that besets us. For every head I cut off the beast, it grows 2 more. I must leave vanquishing it to you. I have entrusted this letter to Terran, my son in all but blood. You see, they have taken my children away from me. If you are able, do me this one service. Find them. Find John and Rachel. Free them from their prison. I know they will fight at your side. Look for the mysteries. I have hidden them well, but allow hope to lead, and you will find them. They may aid you in your fight. The mysteries are far too powerful for me to allow them to fall into their hands. I thank you, Brightstar, for your part is to complete the task I have so thanklessly begun, and which I have so spectacularly failed. Truly yours, Paul Cassizia, Guardian of the Remnant. Collected by Taran Galton, Keeper of the Mysteries, in the year 337 NST. The second excerpt I'd like to read is also from the introduction. It is the first interval before Part 1 of the book. Part 1, Brightstar, interval. The crystal floated through the blackness of space. If you believe in fate, it could only be her cold hands that pushed it into proximity with the lone vessel to pass through that volume of interstellar void. If you believe in the Lightmaker, he was most assuredly responsible for the luminous, impossible enigma's peculiar trajectory and timing. Only purpose and foreknowledge could have placed it where it would be noticed by that tiny man-made vessel. Whatever moved the crystal, however unbelievable its presence, the true enigma was its occupant, imprisoned in its impenetrable facets like an insect in amber. Any memory he possessed had long since fled. It was easy to let go of such things here. The entirety of his past became an incomprehensible blur. Even time itself, our inseparable companion in the odyssey of existence, had lost its grip upon him. His awareness was a dream of a dream. Self was dissolute. He had drifted in the void for unmeasurable eons, becoming no more substantial than the surrounding emptiness. Time slipped around and through him, First frozen, then moving so fast reality blurred into a haze of past, present, and future, all running together like raindrops on the window of his being. Moments or ages, all was incomprehensible except the unrelenting drag of entropy's talons upon the crystal prison. And finally, I'm going to read an excerpt from the middle of the first chapter. Kevin dropped down beside him and shone his light upward toward the hole above, illuminating his own face so Nate could see him. He was older than Nate by a few years, but couldn't have been more than 15 or 16. His face was covered in an onslaught of freckles, and his nervousness was uncomfortable to watch. After a moment, though, he visibly gathered his courage and smiled at Nate. "Look, I know it's none of my business. They'll be here soon, though, and I was wondering, what's it like? They said you was floating out there for, well, practically since forever. What did it feel like?" Nate frowned at Kevin for a moment, then opened his mouth to answer, but measured, purposeful footsteps approaching down the corridor interrupted him. A moment later, another person came around the doorway. In the dimness, Nate couldn't make out much of this new figure, but he got the impression of a severe face with dark hair and dark clothing. Then the man stepped closer and his height became apparent. He towered over the room. Stepping inside, he walked directly beneath the pool of light Kevin was shining on the ceiling. The dark man had an imposing air about him. His craggy, spare face might have been carved from marble, and his eyes took in everything, seemingly with a single glance. Something scaly glittered on his neck, reflecting the light back to Nate like a mirror. Whatever it was, only the edge was visible above the collar of his black silky robes. The man took in Nate's bedraggled, grit-smeared face poking out from under Kevin's blanket. Then he turned his eyes upward toward the hole in the deck above them. For a long moment he stared as if it had insulted him, scowling. Then the material around the edges of the hole began to glow, as if it had suddenly become a luminescent organism. "Fascinating," the word rasped, giving Nate the strange sense that the man's lungs were somehow far older than his wiry frame could possibly house. Kevin stood abruptly, sucking in a breath. "Right, well, I should be getting along then, shouldn't I?" He seemed all arms and legs as he tried to stumble for the door before he'd properly risen. "Radink!" The tall stranger's single word stopped Kevin in his tracks, and he barely managed to catch himself on the doorway with one hand. "Did you disturb this?" The dark man jerked his head to indicate the ragged hole above them. "No, sir." Kevin shook his head. "Didn't seem safe. Took the stairs." The dark man nodded thoughtfully, then raised an eyebrow. "Think you can find our guests some real clothing? And inform the captain that the room adjoining mine will be occupied." "Oh, aye, I can do that." Kevin nodded jerkily. Again he turned to go, but then Nate spoke, his voice clear. "It was like a moment that stretched on until I forgot how it began." Kevin turned back to stare at Nate, and he looked Kevin in the eye and nodded once. Kevin blinked as if he'd forgotten he ever asked a question. Then he turned and fled, taking his light with him. Well, I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you will come join my book launch team or, buy a pre-sale copy. The website is e6universe.com. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.